Here's something that's making me feel pretty old. The premiere of my favorite show of all time happened almost 20 years ago. And given the title of this video, that should give you some context for how I'm approaching the topic in this video. And that is that I love Lost. It was the first show for adults that I ever got into. I remember the adverts on Channel 4 back in the day and how they piqued my interest, and pretty much from the pilot episode, I was just hooked. The idea that a bunch of survivors of a plane crash had to endure even more drama on an island filled with mystery and things trying to kill them was just too good to pass up, and it was certainly a step up from all of the cartoons I've been watching up until that point. And the fact that each episode focused on a specific character, telling you their backstory and how they came to be on the plane, was a style of storytelling that my 12-year-old brain could keep up with. So it all just amounts to a ton of great memories for me, but my wife had never watched the show, so after years of nagging, which I'll admit doesn't make me sound like a great husband, does it? She finally relented to watch the show, and it's been quite the experience. While it was good fun to watch the show again, in fact this was my third time watching it from start to finish, it was definitely a different experience watching it now as an adult myself, and in 2024, the cracks have definitely started to appear a little bit. And that's why I want to talk about what it's like to watch Lost in the present day. And if you want to watch more videos about storytelling in books, film, and TV, then make sure to hit that subscribe button. And I should have said this earlier, but I'm going to try and keep spoilers to an absolute minimum, because if you haven't watched Lost yet, I still recommend that you go and actually give it a look. Particularly as the whole thing is now available on Disney+. So if you haven't watched it, go watch it. Now, I will say right off the bat that my issues with the show don't have anything to do with its ending. I know some people didn't like it, but those people are wrong. In fact, I think that ending still slaps, and I absolutely loved rewatching it. Although I will admit that there are so many breadcrumbs in the final season that if you're really paying attention, you'll probably spot the ending from a mile away. In fact, there's a really obvious one right at the start of the season finale, and my wife picked up on it, so she knew instantly where the ending was going to go. My issue lies more in the show's pacing and the writing of some of the main characters. So let's start with pacing. Everyone knows that the structure of TV shows has changed quite a bit over the last 20 years or so. We're no longer getting seasons of 30 episodes apiece. Instead, it's fewer episodes for a more tightly packed structure, and shows like Breaking Bad and Game of Thrones come to mind. And funnily enough, Lost sits in both of these camps. While the first half of the show had tons of episodes, the writer's strike that struck literally right in the middle of the show ended up having a huge impact on its latter half, with fewer episodes in seasons 4, 5, and 6. And really, I think everyone can agree the show is much better for it. But those first 3 seasons, my god, so many times did I have to reassure my wife that if we just get past this episode or the next, then there is a really good episode on the horizon, which really isn't something that you should ever have to say, and so rarely happens in TV shows these days. And that was less apparent to me as a kid, but as a working adult, you only have so much time in the day to actually watch TV, and so you don't want to slog through multiple episodes at a time just to get to the next main story beat. I'm pretty sure that anyone who's watched the show could agree that they probably could have ditched about 10 episodes, maybe more, and it really wouldn't have had an impact on the overall narrative. There was just too much filler in those earlier seasons to meet the episode count, and even though Lost is quite a plot-heavy show, it just didn't need that many episodes to tell its story. And because the pacing was a bit all over the place, the characterization suffered too. Kate is probably the biggest example of this, and it's a shame because originally she had one of the most compelling backstories of any character. A criminal who ended up in the predicament she was in because she wanted to save her mother from her abuser. I mean, that's a pretty solid premise in its own, and you could probably have a TV show based entirely on that concept. But in the latter half of the show, that backstory just sort of fizzles away, and Kate isn't given that much agency beyond being a love interest for Jack. Ben is another character that could have done with a bit more finessing. And again, the concept of making the show's main villain a key character with his own episodes is a great idea, and to the show's credit, it mostly works. But for a character arc as complex as Ben's, you needed a bit more time to deliver a satisfying resolution, and unfortunately, in the end, it's just far more rushed than what was afforded to most of the other characters. And don't get me started on the fact that whenever Hurley's on screen, there's always some kind of fat joke thrown in. But he is one of the show's main characters, and after a while, you find yourself scratching your head, wondering if the writers want you to take him seriously or simply have him be the butt of every joke. It's just very odd. If Lost were made today, then I'm sure it could fix a lot of these issues, but I don't think it would have the same impact that it had back then. The longer episode count plus the weekly format meant that there was so much speculation amongst fans, both online and offline, about what the heck was going on. There was so much speculation that went into it that by the time the finale rolled around, it felt like a cultural touchstone that really few shows are able to capture these days. So if you haven't watched Lost, I would still say that in spite of its flaws, it is well worth a watch, particularly as streaming has now made it easier to give it a watch than ever before. But if you think I've missed anything, then do let me know in the comments below. But above all, thank you for watching.